Man, my journey to a one-man show. It's so crazy even when you think about it today of how far you've come. It actually started as early as my sophomore year of high school, after being rejected from both the fall comedies and the spring musicals. And even though I was doing stage crew, which was a lot of fun getting to learn all aspects of theater, I was having a lot of self-doubt, insecurities, and it gave me a lot of anxiety throughout most of that time. And all I just wanted to do in life was perform, sing, dance, act, and just be on stage with all of my friends and just tell a great story and just entertain people. But a lot of my friends gave me so much encouragement, and they always said, there's life of performing outside of high school. And so I took this to advantage. I did a lot of community theater, but also getting a lot of inspiration from other things. And one of the things I remember seeing as early, a couple of years prior, I think this was like 8th grade, I went and saw this one-man show with my middle school for assembly. It was basically to teach kids all about no drinking and driving or doing anything stupid. And there was this actor that came up on stage and he was playing all the parts and all these characters. And I thought, wow, that is such a commitment person. And that'd be something that I would love to do. At the same time, I was listening to a lot of my favorite musical theater performers and major influences from Frank Sinatra, Kristen Chenoweth, Linda Eder. And then at the same time, a couple of years prior, Hugh Jackman was starting to do his one-man show. So actually his shows was the one I really looked into the most, because there's just something about him just to deliver his presence, and the way he commands the stage and gets the audience involved really makes it a real fun experience in the theater. So that was kind of the show that I wanted to do. So initially, the idea of a one-man show that I wanted to do was basically music from musical theater dream roles that I wanted to perform in. And then there was a time where I wanted to center it on just more of the nerdy, quirky, wisecracking character roles, which at that same time, I was kind of learning more about my brand and what kind of roles that the industry would most likely want to see me for. And I wanted to celebrate those. But then obviously it was placed in the back burner because really later in life, I was kind of learning about, if you want to do a one-person show, it's all about the depth. It's more of an up-close and personal experience of who you are as a performer, not you trying to copy or impersonate what other people do and deliver what they did. It's basically about your journey of where you come from, what are the things that inspire you, and what makes you so authentic and very special. At the same time, I was going through a lot of personal situations, including going through a horrific autoimmune virus where I was mysteriously paralyzed from the waist down. And then a few years later, I lost my mother to cancer. She was my biggest moral support and the one who really inspired so much of me. 2020, during the time of COVID, or as we like to say it, the Coco. But even before the Coco actually happened, when my mom was still alive and while I was still recovering from my paralyzation and being able to stand again, my family, especially my mom and my dad, they were the ones that really influenced me. And they even said to me that I should consider writing something like a book or a series or some kind of thing that can really click with people and remind them who may have gone through the same thing that I went through, and tell them that they're not alone. As soon as they said that, immediately the light bulb went off and the idea of doing a one-man show started coming back in. So then I started going to more cabaret performances around the city, and I started downloading a lot of live albums of them just to get some inspiration and for study guides. But there's so many great ones that I really love listening to. But if I can think of one album that really helped me discover really the main theme of what I wanted for my show, it was Sierra Boggess's Awakening. Now, for those of you who don't know who Sierra Boggess is, an amazing Broadway and West End star, the original Ariel in The Little Mermaid. She was Christine in the 25th anniversary of Phantom. She was in School of Rock. A lot of amazing shows. And I've met her on multiple occasions. She's very spiritual. But her show Awakening is all about the things that really inspire her. So she took the inspiration from this book by Wayne Dyer, and basically talks about the things that inspire her and using different quotes from him that really kind of mirrors her life. So when I actually listened to this album And there were some things that she was talking about. I'm like, this really kind of mirrors my life, talking about things that inspire me. And at the same time, I kind of realized all throughout my life, I overcame so many obstacles that people were going to say to me that most likely I'm never going to make it or be able to get through here. But I proved people wrong, and that's how it all came into place. So the first person I met who helped put the show together was my friend Norland Kennedy. So we originally met at a theater intensive in the city, and we started talking, just kind of knowing about each other's journeys. And at the same time, Nora started her own cabaret series called Thurston Thursdays. It was at Don't Tell Mama, which is another popular cabaret venue in New York. So it was there that we started sharing each other's works and how much we can grow. But one particular moment, I remember one of the showcases, I actually sang Smash Mouth's All Star. And immediately when I sang it, she said, you know, that song is you. That really is your life right now. You're proving people wrong. And seriously, with that idea of your show, we can expand on this, put songs in there that really tells your story, and it really worked. So then, luckily, 2020 rolls around, and we're still in quarantine during COVID. Nora begins planning her own cabaret consultation called Norlin Helps You Begin. And I officially became her first client. So Nora broke down everything with how to organize a cabaret, from the first number being big epic to your introductions, being able to tell the stories and try to find things that can kind of really flow into the songs, and you just immediately jump straight into them. Because basically the whole idea is when you're doing a cabaret, you have your patter of talking, but then there's like a certain highlighted line that you say that immediately you just burst into song. And that's really how I was able to start to learn more about the puzzle and how really does a cabaret work. And then not only I had Norland Kennedy come on board and help me with the show, I have another amazing friend that I actually met through a couple of theater intensives, but we mainly got to know each other at Broadway events. Her name was Olivia Nguyen. When the pandemic hit, we actually became really close, FaceTiming every day, and Olivia was the one who really taught me so much more. All about performance confidence, stamina, and just how to be a better artist. But Nora and Olivia were the ones who really helped me with the writing and get myself out there. Then the next step was to hire a musical director. So when I was putting the show together, I knew right away that I didn't want to do it with just the piano, which is great, but there's definitely a little bit of that extra oomph that really, when you hear a song, you want to hear it full out and just in an epic sounding like never before. So one of the ideas that came to my mind was actually putting a band together. And for being a dude, always being around the ladies, I knew I wanted my band to be all girls. And I've seen a lot of female singers introducing their boys in the band. Luckily, I was able to find my musical director right away. Her name is Ashley Grace Ryan. So we met through one of our many side gigs in the city. We work for this company that does all the flying for the Broadway shows, half price, but we're not scam people. Ashley was really excited and very moved by my story and journey, and we immediately just hit it off right away. But when you work with Ashley Grace Ryan, she really breaks down every detail that goes into music, especially if you're a singer. She really has such an amazing discipline and gives you such great tips about vocal technique, health, and being able to work on your vowels more. Even just some of the things that I was struggling with for a long time when I was learning how to sing, and be able to learn that from her was definitely such a very helpful tool to have. And that's why I keep hiring Ashley to do all my shows. But then at the same time, I've had different musical directors afterwards. So there'll be a couple of times when Ashley would be unavailable if she's doing another gig somewhere. But whenever I am announcing a new solo show and I'm about to do it again or some sort, Ashley is the first person that I always call, and we always try to make it work. And even if she doesn't, She still comes on board and is the vocal coach and acts as kind of the music supervisor in making sure the show still sounds great and I still have all that discipline. And of course, Ellie Barth and Molly Gorton, who I've also worked with in some of my later shows when Ashley was unavailable, are also amazing as well. So I'm really grateful. And that's the thing about being a performer. When you're doing a solo show, you need to have a great music director that can really understand your voice, give you great motivation, and help you expand on your details and just make you feel right at home. And seriously, Ashley, along with Ellie and Molly as well, they're all three of the best. So for the rest of my band, I actually found a lot of them online through Instagram, Facebook, but notably an amazing website called Maestra. So basically, for those who don't know, Maestra is a nonprofit that supports all female musicians everywhere in the theater community. But a lot of the musicians, everybody was close by, and when we all came together, it was just magical. And then the other important thing about putting a cabaret together, especially if you're going to have a big band, is working out all of the orchestrations. So then, luckily, during COVID, I was doing these virtual choral ensemble pieces for musical theater where each of us records our own part and then we send it in and then they blend everyone. So one of the musicians on it, his name is Jeremy Goodman, was playing piano on a couple of the videos. And so I reached out to him and he was actually really nice. And he started coming in and working out all of the arrangements for the girls. And that's how it just became the epic collaboration. Then with developing the show with the set list and the pattern and everything, that whole process took definitely within the whole a year and a half to 2 years to actually write the show and organize it. So one of the first things that I actually did was putting together a set list of over 30 songs. And then we listened to all of them and then try to work out kind of a process of elimination on what sounds the same and what's different and what would be the best fit for the actual show. So we went into that. So it went from 30 and then we dropped it down to about 11 to 12 songs in the end. So it was very helpful in the long run. And then Jeremy, as we were still doing that, I started sending him the songs we're going to use. And then he starts to orchestrate and just being able to get the musicians out there and to be ready. But it was a lot of hard work and, it was definitely not easy. And then, of course, even because this was your first show, you're also kind of like your own producer, business person, having to pay for all my musicians. So then we started doing a GoFundMe to help support the show and for my whole team and everything. So at least we were all in very good check.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, in an intimate jazz setting to give his regards to Broadway, Mike Caber on the saxophone!
The saxophone. Now, that was an instrument that I initially wanted to do as early as 6th grade in band, but obviously I never had the time to do so because I was already doing a lot of choir and theater there. But as they say, it's never too late to master a new skill. So I reached out to a friend of mine, and so we were just kind of having a random conversation. She actually just posted a photo of her when she was in marching band, and I actually said, I've always wanted to play the saxophone because that was something I really regret on missing out on from middle school and high school. And luckily, she still had it. Apparently, she has two saxophones, but one of the ones she had was very old. She says, if I ever find the old one, I can actually give that to you because that's actually good for a beginner. And then I remember she found it around the fall of 2019, but then we didn't get it until around 2020. And I actually remember the date when I actually did get the saxophone in my hand. March 6, 2020, the last time I was ever in New York City right before COVID, and I was away for a year and a half. So we met up and she gave it to me, and now I've been using it ever since. And then during COVID, I started finding a lot of great coaches, and the coaches I actually was able to find, luckily, would also go on to be part of my band. They help me, especially with playing. It helps even as a singer with your breath support and your diction. They taught me about music theory because back then when I'd be learning songs, I would always learn them by ear. So I never got to read music pretty much until now. I'm still working on it. They were the ones who really, they started all for me. But then another really cool thing is that when you're doing a solo cabaret or any performance, you always want to do something very interesting to surprise and shock people. And for me, because I never got to play before, I thought, you know what, this could be a nice surprise for the audience. Because this is during COVID, it was so tricky to get the practice situation in because my dad was there and I wanted no one to know until the show. And I've learned so much from doing private lessons with the reed players that I ended up casting in the first installment of my show. First, give a shout out to Erica Friedman, Hannah Lee, and then later Meg Brennan, who were the three that really started it all, and they helped develop confidence in me and know that it just takes a little time, but even little detail that you learn from playing the saxophone, it's also a great warm-up tool to use as a singer. For singing, playing a woodwind or a brass, and I definitely recommend this, it actually saves you a lot of energy and it makes your voice less tired. Because you know when you have a voice lesson and you have like those straws and you kind of vibrate to get your voice going, playing a woodwind, it's kind of like that. So I definitely recommend that for singers who are also musicians. For the title of my show, which is Face the Music, was actually kind of my idea. But Nora, of course, decides to elaborate on it and called it Face the Music, Face Your Fears, which was kind of too long. Because it was my first show, I decided, you know what? Just have 3 basic words as kind of like the basic intro that describes me. And when I think of it, I always think of every obstacle that I've had to overcome and face and really prove to people wrong. So that's how the title came into be. But Face Your Fears later was kept as an expanded lyric for what would become my actual original song, Face the Music, which I later premiered in one of the later incarnations of the Face the Music show. So the rehearsal process started in September of 2021. I rehearsed at Ashley's every other week at her apartment, and we just went through everything, and she helped me actually a lot with the pattern to cut a lot down because there were some bits that actually took way too long. And also the other tricky part is that we also had a restriction. So at the same time we started rehearsals was when we had the booking for the venue of the show. So for the first run of Face the Music, we helmed it at the Duplex Cabaret and Piano Bar on Christopher Street on the Lower West Side. The Duplex is one of the most famous venues in all of New York City. It was a major stopping ground for so many of the greatest artists in show business, and it's a popular venue to do a debut solo cabaret show. So when you're doing a cabaret, there are certain rules and things that you have to follow in order to keep your show afloat. You're required to have at least 60 to 75 minutes of material strict on. You are required to get a certain amount of people to keep the show afloat. And if you're underneath, you either pay or they drop you. So it's very stressful. And that's some of the things that really sometimes, even though I'm doing all these solo cabarets and they are a lot of fun, I still to this day, even if I send invitations out and my friends can't make it, I definitely have those doubts or worries that what if, people really don't like my talent or if they think I suck? Because I definitely been in that situation where I invited someone to a show and then they backstabbed me, saying I'm actually no good, which is really a heartbreaking thing. And, I can never be the same ever again because of that. But rehearsals were getting very intense and it was a lot of pressure trying to memorize all the songs, knowing my patter, and also having to cut down a lot of nonsense patter in between the talking because we wanted the show to run very flowingly for exactly 60 to 70 minutes of material. So all this was happening, and originally we were supposed to perform the show in February of 2022. Obviously, that did not happen because around December of 2021, we started hearing about Omicron cases of COVID starting to rise and things were starting to shut down again. So luckily, me and my team, we actually came to a good compromise and we thought, you know what? This will actually work so much better. Why don't we postpone the dates for February and then push the show into April? And you know what? Even the band agreed. Luckily, it gave me more time and I was able to get myself ready, and yeah, the pieces were starting to come in. So then luckily me and Ashley had more time with rehearsals, and then around February was when we started adding the band in. So bringing them into the room that very first day of rehearsal was one of the happiest days of my life, because there's nothing like that feeling of performing with unique, authentic instruments, especially reeds and percussion and like strings. It really brought that extra oomph into the performance. I love my band. And even during the development process of the show, we did go through a bunch of musician changes during that time before we even started rehearsals. So a lot of them initially said they were going to do it, but then some had some last minute rescheduled gigs that got affected from COVID pushed to that same date. And some also had some personal days, which is very understandable. And no matter what, the doors are always open anytime. Following lots of rewrites, changes, cleaned up orchestrations and everything, we continued having more rehearsals leading into our dress rehearsal before the show. And then we did it the next day. You know, I absolutely still get nervous before every gig, and that's part of the job anyway, because being nervous is all about showing that you really care about the work, the art, and the determination you're about to put into your performance. So you definitely get those thoughts of, do I really know the words of the song? Do I know the pattern of what I'm going to say before I even ramble? Do I know all the notes I'm going to play on the saxophone? But it's all of those things that really get you before you go out there. But luckily with my band and everyone behind the scenes who helped me put it together, they were always on my back and they really kept my spirits going, and really seeing their smiles behind me really helped me get through. So the day the show comes around, I get to the venue around 4 o'clock, 4:30, just taking in the space all by myself, a moment to breathe and warm up all alone. And then around 4:30, 5 o'clock, we did about a good 30-minute sound check, running through just a couple of songs so I can feel very comfortable and right at home. Then we go hang out in the green room backstage upstairs as the audience was coming in. So we were hanging out there for an hour, called Olivia, so she got to know more of the girls, and then it was time. So we were scheduled to go on at 7 o'clock, but in true show business fashion, all shows start late. I actually had to wait for an extra 20 minutes until we hit the stage. And so one of the things I actually found out was that the reason why they started that late was because more people started buying their tickets at the door. And we found out by the end of the night, the show was last minute sold out. Did a little pre-show huddle and hands in with my band. And then it was showtime. From the minute I hit the stage, you couldn't even imagine what it was like hearing the loud, piercing applause of the people coming there to actually see me. There were a lot of laughs, a lot of tears, and just the unforgettable love you get from the people who have been with you since day one, and seeing you grow over the years was just a very special experience. To be able to share my story with them and talk where I came from really inspired them and their own personal struggles that they may go through. And that's why music alone is so important. But all my Face the Music shows continues to go into the memory of my beautiful late mom, Suzanne Klein-Haber, a woman who really gave me the power of determination, believing in your dreams, and never giving up. But closing the show with All Star, it became a party. And when I yanked out the saxophone in the middle of that song, the whole audience freaked out and said that was the biggest shock surprise of their life. And by the time I hit that final note and hit the final mark, it was like I actually got to do what I dreamt of doing as early as sophomore year of high school, and it all came true. Thank you, universe. So the response to the first show does really well, and we had a great turnout. Immediately, me, Nora, and my whole team and band decided we're going to do an encore. So then we did that at the Lloyd Beachman Theater in November of 2022, which included the premiere performance of my original song, Face the Music, which is now available as a single on Spotify, iTunes, Apple, Amazon, wherever music is available for download. But then we did an unplugged version at the no longer existing Rockwood Music Hall. Then we did a big band version at the Green Room 42. And now I've just been kind of taking a break from the Face the Music show. But I also have been doing an annual holiday show, which I started doing last year, called the Happy Haber Holiday. And now we're getting ready to do a second run of that this December at the Triad. So we're making this an annual tradition to basically choose a different set of holiday songs every year and kind of keep it fresh and exciting, because who does not love the holidays? And there's so many good ones to choose from anyway. So that's pretty much the life of what it's like to do your very first solo show ever. Hope to see you at one of my live shows. And most importantly, thanks for watching this video.